Dr. Geo Kim took a deep breath as the airlock door opened. This was it. After 3 months in space, he was finally stepping onto Galactic Research Station Harmony 7, the first human scientist to work here. The station looked like a giant metal donut floating in space. Inside, it was bright and clean. The air smelled a bit like mint and metal. "Welcome to Harmony 7, Dr. Kim," said a voice. Jiho turned to see a small person with light purple skin. She stood about 5 feet tall, with large eyes that were fully black. Her head had no hair, but instead a pattern of small ridges. She wore a simple white lab coat with strange symbols on the pocket. "I am Neri, your research partner," she said. Her voice had a musical quality. "I am a Tellurian. We will work together in the biology lab." "Nice to meet you," Jiho said with a smile, extending his hand. "Call me Jiho." Neri stared at his hand, then at his face. She seemed confused. "Oh, sorry," Jiho said, lowering his hand. "On Earth, we shake hands when we meet someone new." "Ah," Neri said. "We Tellurians do not touch casually. It is intimate." Her purple skin darkened slightly around her cheeks. Jiho nodded. "First mistake already. I understand. Thank you for telling me." As they walked through the station, other aliens turned to stare at him. Some were tall and thin. Others had extra limbs or strange features. But all seemed interested in the human. "You are the tallest person on the station," Neri explained. "And your body shape is very different." Jiho stood nearly 2 feet taller than Neri. His broad shoulders and muscular build made him look huge next to the slender Tellurian. "Different how?" Jiho asked. "Humans have very pronounced physical features," Neri said, her voice getting quieter. "Your muscle mass, your body hair, and your—" She waved her hand vaguely toward his chest area. "Upper body development." "Oh," Jiho said, understanding. He looked around and noticed that most aliens had fairly flat chests, regardless of their species. Human sexual dimorphism seemed to be unusual here. They reached the lab, a large room filled with strange equipment. A few other aliens were working inside. They all stopped to stare when Jiho entered. "Everyone," Neri announced, "this is Dr. Jiho Kim, xenobiologist from Earth." A taller Tellurian stepped forward. "I am Doyun, head of research. We have questions about human biology. That's why I'm here," Jiho said with a smile. "Cultural and scientific exchange." "Yes," Doyun said, not smiling back. "We find humans very unusual. Your species survives conditions that would kill most sentient life. You eat poisons for pleasure. Your bones are remarkably dense." Jiho laughed. "I guess we're tougher than we look." And louder, Doyun added, "Please try to speak more softly. Tellurian hearing is sensitive." "Sorry," Jiho whispered. As the day continued, Jiho kept making small mistakes. He stood too close when talking. He gestured too much with his hands. He laughed too loudly at jokes. By the end of the day, he felt exhausted from trying not to be too human. "You did well for your first day," Neri told him as she walked him to his quarters. "Tomorrow we begin our research on cross-species genetic expression." "Looking forward to it," Jiho said, careful to keep his voice soft. When Neri left, Jiho entered his room and collapsed on the bed with a sigh. Working with aliens was going to be harder than he thought, but also more interesting. Little did he know just how interesting things would soon become. 3 weeks passed on Harmony 7 station. Jiho was getting used to life among aliens. He learned to speak softly, to avoid touching others, and to eat the strange station food without making faces. Jiho and Neri worked well together in the lab. They studied how different species cells reacted to various environments. Neri was smart and kind, always patient when explaining alien customs to Jiho. But one morning, Neri didn't come to the lab. "Computer," Jiho asked the station eye, "where is Scientist Neri?" "Scientist Neri is in her quarters," the flat voice answered. She has requested privacy. Jiho frowned. This wasn't like Nari. She was never late. At lunch, Jiho sat with Minsu, the medical officer. Minsu's skin changed colors as he spoke, a normal thing for his species. "Have you seen Nari today?" Jiho asked. Minsu turned a worried shade of green. "She came to Medical Bay early this morning. She was uncomfortable, but patient records are private." "Is she sick?" Jiho asked, concerned for his friend. "Not exactly sick," Minsu said. His skin flickered between green and blue. "It's more of a change. We don't know what caused it." The next day, Nari still didn't come to work, or the day after that. On the fourth day, Jiho was alone in the lab when his computer beeped. It was a message from Nari. "Can you come to my quarters? I need your help. It's important." 5 minutes later, Jiho stood outside Nari's door. "Who is it?" called a nervous voice. "It's Jiho," he answered. "You asked me to come." The door slid open just enough for him to slip inside. The room was dimly lit. Nari stood in the shadows, wearing a loose robe instead of her usual lab coat. Her purple face was so dark, it was almost black, a sign of extreme embarrassment in Tellurians. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I didn't know who else to ask." "What's wrong?" Joe asked. Nari took a deep breath. "Something is happening to my body. The medical team doesn't understand it." She paused. "You study how different species adapt to new environments. I think this might be an adaptation." "What kind of adaptation?" Jiho asked. Nari stepped into the light. "This kind." Jiho tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to notice. Nari's chest had changed. Where Tellurians were normally flat, she now had 2 round swellings pushing against her robe, not unlike human female breasts. "They started growing 2 weeks ago," Nari explained, her face darkening even more. "At first I thought it was an allergic reaction, but the medical scanner says it's new tissue growth." "Does it hurt?" Jill asked, trying to be professional. "No, but they're sensitive and heavy." Nari looked at the floor. "The worst part is everyone staring. In our culture, such features are considered primitive. Some ancient Tellurians had them, before we evolved." Jiho thought for a moment. "This started after I arrived, right?" Nari nodded. "The human quarter has different environmental settings," Jiho said, thinking out loud. "Different air mixture, different gravity settings, and different hormones." Nari asked. "Possibly," Jiho said. "Human hormones might be affecting your body chemistry." "Can you help me understand what's happening?" Nari asked. "The station doctors don't specialize in Tellurian biology, and they've never seen this before." "I'll help," Jiho promised. "We'll figure this out together." For the first time in days, Nari smiled. "Thank you. I knew I could trust you." "That's what friends are for," Jiho said. "Let's collect some data and run some tests. Maybe there's a simple explanation." But as they began planning their research, Jiho suspected this mystery wouldn't be simple at all. And he worried about what would happen to Nari if they couldn't find a solution soon. Jiho and Nari spent the next 3 days in a private lab. They ran tests on Nari's tissue samples and studied old Tellurian medical records. Nari wore loose clothes to hide her new changes. "Look at this," Jiho said, pointing to the screen. "Your DNA has active genes that were dormant before." Nari leaned closer to see. "What does that mean?" "It means these genes were always in your body, but they weren't turned on," Jiho explained. "Something turned them on recently." "But what?" Nari asked. Her face darkened with a purple blush again. Jiho pulled up another screen. "I think it's this. The air in the human living area has trace amounts of human hormones. Normal for us, but new for you." "Hormones?" Nari asked. "Chemical messengers," Jiho said. "They tell parts of the body what to do. Human hormones must be similar enough to Tellurian hormones that your body responded to them. Nari thought about this. So my body thinks it should grow these features because it detected human hormones. Exactly, Jiho nodded. Your species and humans must share a common ancestor somewhere millions of years ago. That's why your dormant genes can be activated by our hormones. They called in Minsu, the medical officer, to confirm their findings. His skin turned bright yellow with surprise as he looked at their data. Fascinating, Minsu said. Tellurians and humans are not as different as we thought. Your ancient ancestors must have had these mammary glands too. Mammary glands? Nari asked. That's what humans call them, Jiho explained. Females use them to feed babies. They're perfectly normal for humans. But not for modern Tellurians, Nari said sadly. Everyone will think I'm a freak. You're not a freak, Jiho said firmly. This is just your body adapting to a new environment. It shows how amazing Tellurian biology is. Minsu's skin turned a thoughtful blue. Is it dangerous? He asked Jiho. I don't think so, Jiho answered. The tissue looks healthy, but we should monitor it. Can we reverse it? Nari asked hopefully. Jiho and Minsu looked at each other. Maybe, Jiho said. If you stay away from human areas, the effect might reverse slowly, or we could try to develop a hormone blocker. But we need more research, Minsu added. This is new territory for our medical team. When they left the lab, they found Doyun, the head researcher, waiting for them. His face was stern. I hear you've been conducting unauthorized medical research, he said coldly. We were trying to understand what's happening to Nari, Jiho explained. This is a private medical matter, Nari said, crossing her arms over her chest. Dohyun frowned. Nothing is private when it affects station safety. What if this is contagious? What if other Tellurians start developing these primitive features? It's not contagious, Minsu assured him, his skin turning a confident orange. It's a reaction to human hormones in the air system. Even worse, Dohyun said, human contamination of our environment. The council will want to review this immediately. It's not contamination, Joe argued. It's just different, and it's not harmful. That's not for you to decide. Human, Dohyun snapped. The council will meet tomorrow. All of you will present your findings. After Dohyun left, Nari looked worried. This is bad. The council is very traditional. They might send all humans away if they think you're changing us. They can't do that, Jiho said. Can they? They can, Minsu confirmed, his skin turning anxious purple. And they might. Nari touched Jiho's arm, the first time she had willingly touched him. We need to convince them this isn't a problem. But how? Jiho wasn't sure. But he knew one thing. He wouldn't let his friend face this alone. News spread fast on Harmony 7. By the next morning, everyone knew about Nari's condition. As she walked to the council meeting, aliens stared and whispered. Some pointed. Others moved away as if she might be contagious. Nari's face stayed dark purple with embarrassment. She wore a loose lab coat, but it couldn't hide her new shape completely. Ignore them, Jiho said, walking beside her. They're just surprised. In Tellurian history, only primitive tribes had these features, Nari whispered. It's like suddenly growing a tail or extra eyes to humans. The council room was large and round. 7 aliens sat at a high table. Dohyun stood before them, already talking about human contamination and biological interference. When Nari entered, the room went silent. All eyes turned to her. Please step forward, said the oldest council member, a Tellurian named Junho. Nari walked to the center of the room, with Jiho and Minsu beside her. Explain what has happened, Junho ordered. Minsu's skin turned a professional blue as he described the medical facts. Jiho explained how human hormones had activated dormant genes in Nari's DNA. And is this dangerous? Junho asked. No, Jiho said firmly. It's just a physical change. It doesn't harm her health. But it harms our culture. Do-hyun interrupted. Look at her. She resembles our cave-dwelling ancestors. Next, will she grow body hair? Will she lose her telepathic abilities? Neri looked at the floor, her blush deepening. A small alien from another species spoke up. I've heard that all humans have these strange growths. Is this true? Human females do, Jiho explained. They're called breasts or mammary glands. They're normal for us. Disgusting, muttered someone in the crowd. Primitive, said another voice. Nari's shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear. Jiho felt anger rising. There's nothing disgusting about different biology, he said loudly. Every species evolves differently. After the meeting, the council decided Nari could continue working, but she had to stay away from human areas. They also ordered special filters installed in the air system. Life got harder for Nari. In the cafeteria, no one would sit near her. In the lab, people whispered when she walked by. Hey, coconuts, called the rude young Tellurian male as Nari walked down a hallway. His friends laughed. What did he call me? Nari asked Jiho, who was walking with her. It's a human word, Jiho explained, feeling embarrassed himself now. It's a fruit that's round and comes in pairs. Oh, Nari said, understanding. Her blush, which had finally started to fade, came back stronger than ever. Later that day, a group of female scientists from different species approached Nari in the lab. We want to study your condition, said their leader bluntly. It might provide insights into primitive evolutionary stages. I'm not a lab specimen, Nari said quietly. But you're a unique case, the scientist insisted. The data would be valuable. She said no. Jiho interrupted, stepping between them. Nari is a scientist, not a research subject. After they left, Nari sighed. Thank you. But you can't always protect me. Friends stand up for each other, Jiho said. On Earth, we don't let people treat others badly just because they're different. I wish I could visit Earth, Nari said. It sounds like a place where I might fit in. Maybe someday, Jiho said. But first, we need to change some minds here. Nari nodded, but didn't look hopeful. How can we change thousands of years of cultural beliefs? Jiho didn't have an answer yet, but he was determined to find one. A week passed. Nari tried to hide from the stares and whispers, but it was impossible. The station wasn't that big. Everywhere she went, people noticed her. One evening, Jiho invited Nari to his quarters. I want to show you something, he said. Nari was nervous about breaking the council's rule not to visit human areas, but curiosity won. She went to Jiho's room after most people were asleep. His room was different from Tellurian quarters. It had pictures on the walls, colorful blankets, and strange objects she didn't recognize. What are those? Nari asked, pointing to flat squares on Jiho's desk. Photos from Earth, Jiho said. Pictures of my family and friends. He handed her one. It showed a group of human females on a beach. They wore small clothes and had different body shapes. All had the chest features that Nari now had. These are my sister and her friends, Jiho explained. Notice how they're all different. Some taller, some shorter. Some have larger features, some smaller. Nari studied the photo. They all look happy. They are, Jiho said. On Earth, we learned that bodies come in all shapes and sizes. No single type is better than others. He showed her more photos. Humans with light skin, dark skin, tall, short, thin, heavy. Humans with different face shapes and hair colors. There's so much variety, Nari said, amazed. Tellurians all look very similar. Exactly, Jiho said. That's why your changes seem so strange to them. They're not used to physical differences. Jiho activated his computer screen. I also want to show you this. He played videos of Earth history. They showed how human ideas of beauty had changed over time. In some times and places, rounder bodies were considered beautiful. In others, thinner bodies were preferred. Human opinions change many times, Jiho explained. What's considered normal isn't fixed. It changes. But Tellurian views haven't changed for thousands of years, Neri said. That's because your environment stayed the same, Jiho said. But now, with space travel and meeting new species, things will change. They have to. Neri thought about this. You mean my body is just ahead of everyone else's thinking? Exactly. Joe smiled. You're not going backwards to a primitive state. You're going forward into a new understanding of what Tellurians can be. For the first time since her changes started, Neri smiled without embarrassment. I never thought about it that way. There's something else, Jiho said. He showed her medical articles about human female athletes, scientists, and leaders. Having these physical features doesn't make humans less intelligent or capable. Do-Yun says my brain will change next. Neri worried. That I'll lose my telepathic abilities. There's no evidence of that, Jiho assured her. Your brain scans are exactly the same as before. You're still you, Neri, just with a slightly different body. Neri looked at herself in Jiho's mirror. Maybe it's not so bad, she said quietly. Maybe I can get used to it. That's the spirit, Jiho said. And maybe others can get used to it too. As Neri left Jiho's quarters, she stood a little straighter. Her face still turned purple when someone looked at her chest, but the blush wasn't as dark as before. The next morning, Neri wore her regular fitted uniform instead of the loose lab coat. People still stared, but she didn't hide. What changed? Minsu asked her, his skin turning curious yellow. I did, Neri said simply. I decided to stop being ashamed of something that isn't shameful. Jiho, watching from across the lab, smiled proudly. But he knew their challenges weren't over yet. 3 days later, alarms rang throughout Harmony 7. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The station's computer voice repeated, Emergency. Life support failure in sections 12 through 17. All personnel evacuate to safe zones. Jiho was in the main lab when the alarm started. He ran to the control room where station leaders gathered. What happened? He asked Minsu, who was already there. A meteor hit the outer hull. Minsu explained, his skin flashing worried red. It damaged the air recycling system and the backup power. Do-Yun was giving orders to search teams. We have 17 people missing in the damaged sections, he said. The sensors can't locate them because of power loss. I can help search, Jiho offered. Do-Yun frowned. No, humans need more oxygen. It's too dangerous. Suddenly Neri pushed through the crowd. I'll go, she said. You? Do-Yun looked surprised. Why you? My telepathic senses have been stronger lately, Neri said. I might be able to find people that sensors can't detect. Stronger. Do-Yun looked suspicious. How? I don't know why, Neri admitted, but I can sense emotions from farther away than before. Let me try. After a moment, Do-Yun nodded. Fine, but take an emergency team with you. Neri and 4 security officers put on breathing masks and entered the damaged area. The lights were out, and the air was thin. They moved carefully through dark hallways. At a junction, Neri stopped. She closed her eyes. This way, she said, pointing left. I sense fear. The team followed her to a blocked doorway. Behind it, they found 3 young scientists trapped by fallen equipment. How did you know? One security officer asked. I felt them, Neri said simply. Over the next 2 hours, Neri led teams to find all the missing people. Some were unconscious. Others were hidden in places the sensors couldn't scan. But Neri found every one of them. Meanwhile, Jiho worked with the engineering team. He suggested using parts from the human quarters to fix the damaged systems. Human air filters are stronger, he explained. They can clean more carbon dioxide. The engineers were skeptical but desperate. They tried Jiho's idea. It worked. By the time Neri found the last missing person, the air systems were running again. In the medical bay, Neri sat on an exam bed. She felt tired but happy. She had saved lives today. Minsu scanned her with medical equipment. His skin turned bright orange with excitement. "This is amazing," he said. "Your brain is showing increased activity in the telepathic center. And look at these hormone levels." Jiho looked at the screen. "The same hormones that caused your physical changes seem to be enhancing your natural abilities," he told Neri. Do-hyun stepped closer to see. For once, he didn't look disapproving. "You saved many lives today," he admitted to Neri. "Without your enhanced senses, we would have lost people." "And Jiho's human technology saved the air system," Minsu added. Do-hyun nodded reluctantly. "It seems there may be benefits to our biological differences." Later, in the cafeteria, something unusual happened. People thanked Neri as she walked by. Some even sat with her and Jiho during dinner. "They're treating you differently," Jiho noticed. "Yes," Neri said. Her face turned slightly purple, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment. It was a happy blush. "They're seeing beyond my appearance to what I can do." "That's how it should be," Jiho said. As they ate, Neri realized something important. Her changes, which had seemed like a curse, had given her unexpected strength. She wasn't just different now. She was stronger in ways no one had predicted. And for the first time, she felt truly proud of her new self. 2 weeks after the emergency, life on Harmony 7 had changed. The council lifted the rule keeping Neri away from human areas. Instead, they asked Jiho and Neri to study the positive effects of their two species working together. "We should create a cultural exchange program," Neri suggested as she and Jiho worked in the lab. "Help everyone understand each other better." "That's a great idea," Jiho agreed. "What should we include?" They spent days planning. Then they announced their first Human-Tellurian Friendship Day event in the station's main hall. On the day of the event, Neri still blushed when she walked into the crowded room. But now her blush was lighter. She wore a special outfit that combined human and Tellurian styles. "Welcome, everyone," she said to the crowd. Aliens from all station departments had come. Even Do-hyun was there. "Today we want to share the best parts of our cultures," Jiho explained. "To show how different doesn't mean bad. It just means different." They had set up displays around the room. One showed human art and music. Another had Tellurian poetry and dance. A food table offered dishes from both worlds. "Try this," Neri told a group of curious aliens, offering small cups of a brown liquid. "It's called hot chocolate. Humans drink it for comfort." Nearby, Jiho taught others how to play simple Earth card games. Laughter filled the room as aliens tried to understand Go Fish and Crazy Eights. Tahi, a human diplomat who had recently arrived at the station, demonstrated Earth dances. She showed aliens how to do the Macarena and simple waltz steps. Minsu's skin shifted through rainbow colors as he tried dancing. "Humans move their bodies in such interesting ways," he said. In another corner, Neri led a demonstration of Tellurian meditation techniques. Humans and aliens sat in a circle, learning to sense each other's emotions. "Focus on the energy between us," Neri instructed. "Humans can't receive telepathic signals, but they can learn to project their feelings in ways we can sense." Jiho concentrated hard. He imagined sending feelings of friendship outward. Neri's eyes widened. "I felt that," she exclaimed. It was faint, but clear. Her face darkened with an excited purple blush. Other Tellurians in the circle nodded in surprise. They had felt it too. "This is groundbreaking," Do-hyun admitted, joining their group. "We always thought humans had no telepathic abilities." "We don't," Jiho explained. "But maybe we can learn to communicate in new ways." As the day continued, something remarkable happened. People stopped staring at Neri's chest and started listening to her ideas. Some female aliens even asked her privately about her experience. "Does it hurt to be different?" a young Tellurian scientist asked Neri. Sometimes, when people are unkind, Nari answered honestly. But being different also helped me discover new strengths. Later, Jiho found Nari looking out a viewport at the stars. "You're not blushing as much today," he noticed. "I'm getting used to it," she said, "and people are getting used to me." "Our event was a success," Jiho said. "I heard the council wants to make it a monthly tradition." Nari smiled. "This is just the beginning. Imagine what else we could learn from each other." As aliens and humans mingled throughout the station, new friendships formed. People who had once avoided Nari now sought her advice. Scientists who had dismissed human biology now studied it with interest. That night, Nari wrote in her personal log, "Today I realized something important. My coconuts didn't just change my body. They changed how our cultures see each other. Sometimes standing out isn't a bad thing if it helps people connect in new ways." She no longer hid from mirrors. When she looked at herself now, she saw not a mistake, but a bridge between worlds. A month passed. Nari and Jiho worked long hours in their lab. They studied the changes in Nari's body and brain. They tested other Tellurians who spent time near humans. Some showed small changes too, though none as dramatic as Nari's. "Look at this data," Nari said one morning, pointing to her screen. "My cells adapt to new environments twice as fast as before." Jiho looked at the numbers. "That's amazing. The hormonal changes didn't just affect your appearance. They affected how your whole body works." They ran more tests. They discovered that the genes activated in Nari could be helpful in other ways too. These genes might help Tellurians survive on different planets, Jiho explained to Minsu. "They make the body more flexible, more able to change." Minsu's skin turned thoughtful blue. Could this help with space sickness? Many species get sick when they travel between planets. "Maybe," Nari said. "We should test it." They designed an experiment. They took cell samples from 10 volunteers from different species. They exposed the cells to changing conditions, like different gravity and temperature. The results were clear. Cells with active adaptation genes like Nari survived better. They changed to fit their new environment instead of dying. "This could change everything," Jiho said excitedly. "Space travel, colonizing new planets, medical treatments." Even Do-hyun was impressed. "This research could help our people," he admitted. "If we can control which genes activate, we could help people adapt to new worlds without unwanted physical changes." Nari and Jiho wrote a scientific paper. They called it Cross-Species Genetic Expression in Varied Environmental Conditions. They sent it to the Galactic Science Academy. 3 days later, the station received a message from the Academy. Their paper had created excitement throughout the galaxy. Scientists everywhere wanted to learn more about their discovery. "They want us to present our findings at the Academy's main planet," Jiho told Nari. "It's a great honor." Nari's face turned dark purple. "Me, in front of thousands of scientists." "You?" Jiho confirmed. "This is your discovery too, maybe even more yours than mine." Nari touched her chest area, which hadn't changed back despite the new air filters. "Will they stare at me?" "Maybe at first," Jiho said honestly. "But then they'll listen, because what you have to say matters more than how you look." That night, the council held a special dinner to celebrate Nari and Jiho's achievement. Everyone on the station attended. "To our scientists," Junho said, raising a glass, "who turned a medical mystery into a galaxy-changing discovery." People cheered. Nari blushed again, but smiled through it. After dinner, a young Tellurian girl approached Nari. "I want to be a scientist like you," she said shyly. "Is it hard?" "Sometimes," Nari said, "but worth it." "And?" The girl hesitated. "Does it hurt to be different?" Nari thought about the past months. The stares, the whispers, the rude comments, but also the discoveries, the new friends, the lives she had saved. "Being different can hurt," she told the girl, "but it can also be a gift. My changes helped me see things others missed. Across the room, Jiho watched Neri talking to the young girl. He felt proud of his friend. She had come so far from the embarrassed alien who had hidden in loose clothes. "Your human has done well," Do-yeon said, joining Jiho. "The academy may offer her a permanent position." "She's not my human," Jiho corrected. "She's my friend and colleague." Do-yeon nodded. "Yes, and perhaps the future of our species. If we can adapt like she has, we might survive in places we never imagined." Jiho smiled. The future suddenly seemed full of possibilities, and it had all started with something as simple as Neri's coconuts. 1 year passed since Neri's first changes. The Harmony 7 station was now famous across the galaxy. Scientists from 50 different worlds had visited to learn about the human Tellurian adaptation project. Today was special. The station was hosting the first Galactic Diversity Summit. Representatives from all known species had gathered to discuss how physical differences could benefit everyone. Neri stood backstage, waiting to give the opening speech. She wore a beautiful Tellurian formal robe, specially designed to fit her changed body. Her face had a light purple blush, but it was from excitement, not shame. "Ready?" Jill asked, joining her. He wore a human formal suit. "I think so," Neri said. "I never imagined speaking to so many important people." "You deserve this moment," Jill told her. "You changed how the galaxy thinks about adaptation." The hall was packed with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had multiple arms, others had wings or fins. Each was different, yet each had come to learn. "Welcome to the first Galactic Diversity Summit," announced Junho, now head of the council. "Our keynote speaker today is scientist Neri, whose personal journey changed galactic science forever." The crowd applauded as Neri walked onto the stage. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "1 year ago, I woke up different," she said. "My body had changed in ways that frightened me. I was embarrassed. I couldn't stop blushing." The audience listened quietly. "In my culture, these changes seemed like a step backward. But with help from my human friend Jiho, I learned they were actually a step forward. My body wasn't becoming primitive. It was becoming adaptable." Neri explained how her physical changes had led to enhanced abilities, how those discoveries had helped others, how what seemed like a problem had become a solution. "Today, doctors across the galaxy use our research to help people adapt to new worlds," she continued. "Children born on space stations no longer suffer from bone weakness. Travelers don't get sick moving between planets." She touched her chest area, no longer hiding it. "These changes, which once made me blush with shame, now remind me that difference is strength. Adaptation is life." The crowd stood and cheered. Many were former patients who had benefited from Neri and Jiho's research. After the speech, Neri and Jiho walked through the exhibition hall. Research teams displayed new technologies based on their work. Medical treatments, space habitats, all designed to help different species live better together. Dr. Kim, scientist Neri, called a voice. They turned to see Tahi, the human diplomat, with a group of young Tellurians. "These students want to join the exchange program," Tahi explained. "They hope to study on Earth next year." One young male Tellurian stepped forward. "You're the reason I want to be a scientist," he told Neri. "You showed us that being different can be good." Neri smiled. Once, such attention would have made her blush dark purple. Now her face stayed its normal light violet. Later, Neri and Jiho stood at their favorite viewport, watching the stars. "Remember when you called me coconuts?" Neri asked with a laugh. "I never called you that," Jiho protested. "Other people did." "Well, I like it now," Neri said. "It reminds me how far we've come." Do-yeon joined them, looking more relaxed than they had ever seen him. "The council has approved funding for 10 new adaptation research centers," he announced. "You two will oversee the project." "Both of us?" Joe asked, surprised. "Yes," Do-yeon nodded. "Human adaptability and Tellurian empathy work well together." Like you too. As the three of them looked out at the stars, Mary realized something important. Her body had changed, yes, but the biggest change had been in minds, hers and everyone else's. And she hadn't blushed deeply in months. The end.